Welcome to Flashcards Friday. On Monday, I spent a few minutes looking at the life of John Dalton. And in the last week's episode, I explored how a self-taught Quaker schoolteacher helped lay the foundation for modern atomic theory. I noted his incredible discipline, his curiosity, his groundbreaking work on colorblindness, and the observations that eventually changed chemistry forever. It's easy to hear a story like Dalton's and think, well, that's because he was brilliant. We tend to place people like him up on a pedestal as though they possess something the rest of us never could. But I don't think that's the most important lesson his life has to teach us. I believe the more important lesson here is that John Dalton practiced habits of mind that every single one of us already possesses. The difference wasn't that he had a completely different brain. The difference was that he deliberately exercised those habits over and over again for decades. Today, I'm going to give you 3 flashcards that I hope you will carry with you. And as you listen, I also hope you'll recognize something else. You don't have to become a scientist to think like one. In many ways, you already do. Flashcard number 1, you already notice patterns. One of the greatest misconceptions about science is that it begins in a laboratory, and it really does not. Science begins with paying attention. Before there are equations, experiments, or discoveries, there is simply someone who notices that something is different than expected. Think about your own life. Have you ever noticed that one route to work is consistently faster than another, even though your GPS insists they are the same? Have you realized that your dog behaves differently before it rains? Maybe you've discovered that one of your houseplants flourishes in a certain window, while another struggles in a different window, even though they're watered exactly at the same time, same day. Parents know when their kids are getting sick long before the symptoms wake you up at 3 in the morning. And here's the one that gets me. Mechanics hear an engine and instantly know something sounds different. I don't know how they do that. It's amazing. None of these people are wearing lab coats, yet every one of them is doing exactly what scientists do. They are observing patterns. John Dalton did the same thing. He paid attention to the weather every single day for nearly 57 years. He noticed details that most people would have ignored because he believed that every observation matters. Eventually, that same careful attention led him to realize that he perceived colors differently than other people. This is a great story. You could hear it in last week's podcast. It began with a simple pair of stockings for his mom and then became the first scientific study of colorblindness. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, again, be sure to listen to last Wednesday's podcast. It's a great story. The important part of that story isn't that Dalton made the discovery. It's that the discovery began with noticing something that didn't quite fit his expectations. And that's something every one of us does. Every time you stop and wonder why something happened, your brain is engaging in the very first step of scientific thinking. Flashcard number 2. You already perform experiments every day. You do. You already build systems. When most people hear the word experiment, they picture bubbling beakers, complicated formulas, or an expensive laboratory with lots of equipment. But experiments happen all around us, often even without us realizing it. Suppose you leave home 15 minutes earlier because traffic has been frustrating lately. You're testing a hypothesis. Maybe you decide to change the way you organize your calendar to see whether you become more productive. That is an experiment. Perhaps you've adjusted a recipe because dinner turned out too salty the last time. That's an experiment. Gardeners try different fertilizers. Great teachers try different ways of explaining a lesson. Mindful business owners test new ideas with customers. Athletes change their training routines. Some even throw away their old lucky socks. Every one of those decisions begins with the same question: I wonder what will happen if I try this instead. That question is one of the most powerful questions a human can ask. For John Dalton, one of his greatest contributions wasn't just proposing atoms. He created a system. He took existing experimental evidence from chemists like Antoine Lavoisier and Joseph Proust. He looked for patterns in how elements combined and proposed that matter was made of atoms. He then organized those atoms into one of the first tables of atomic weights. When he published A New System of Chemical Philosophy in 1808, his table had about 20 elements. And by the second volume in 1827, he had expanded it to 36 elements because he had incorporated new evidence. So the next time you adjust your morning routine, change the way you solve a problem at work, or try a different approach with your family, don't dismiss it as ordinary. You're doing exactly what thoughtful scientists have always done. You are testing ideas instead of assuming that you already know the answer. Finally, flashcard number 3. You already change your mind. Yeah, you do. When the new evidence appears, you change it. This may be the hardest habit of all because it requires humility. Nobody enjoys being wrong. Our pride naturally wants to defend what we already believe. But one of the defining characteristics of great scientists, philosophers, and mathematicians is that they are willing to follow the evidence even when it leads somewhere unexpected. Think about your own experiences. Have you ever misjudged someone only to discover later that you completely misunderstood them? Maybe you thought a coworker was unfriendly until you learned they were just super shy. Perhaps you believed a certain method would never work until someone showed you a better way. Maybe you've changed your opinion after reading a book or watching a movie, having a thoughtful conversation, or simply gaining more life experience. If you've ever admitted, I was wrong, you've demonstrated one of the most remarkable abilities the human mind possesses. You've demonstrated that you released an opinion that you once held. You became wiser by remaining teachable. Curiosity and humility make excellent partners because curiosity asks questions while humility is willing to hear the answers. John Dalton experienced this kind of intellectual humility throughout his entire career. He wasn't afraid to question accepted ideas, and he was not afraid to let careful observation guide his thinking. Even though some of his scientific conclusions were later refined by future generations, he still had the courage to build his understanding from evidence instead of tradition. That's how knowledge grows. Every generation learns from the one before it, adding new pieces to a puzzle that no single person will ever finish. So here are your 3 flashcards to consider. Oh my God, my hair. Flashcard number 1, you already notice patterns. Your observations make you scientifically minded. Flashcard number 2, you already build systems. When you organize what you observe, you are developing a deeper understanding. And flashcard number 3, you already revise your thinking. This comes from changing your mind. And that is where wisdom comes from. I want you to remember that John Dalton wasn't remarkable simply because he developed atomic theory or studied color blindness. He was remarkable because he spent a lifetime paying attention, asking questions, recording what he observed, and remaining curious about the world around him. Those are not talents reserved for famous scientists. They are habits available to every one of us. So the next time you notice a pattern, ask a question, try a different approach, or change your mind because you've learned something new, don't overlook what you are doing. Those moments may seem ordinary, but they are the building blocks of scientific thinking. They are the same habits that have fueled discoveries throughout history, from philosophers in ancient Greece to mathematicians, chemists, engineers, physicians, and researchers today. Thank you for joining me for Flashcards Friday, and I hope these 3 flashcards stay with you throughout next week. Notice patterns, test ideas, and remain willing to learn. Those simple habits have changed the course of history more than once, and they can certainly change the way you experience your own life today. Thank you for watching Flashcards Fridays and listening to the podcast. And until next time, carpe diem, my friends.